Today we will be looking at the system from the perspective of the employee's life cycle. We will begin by diving into the onboarding process. We will then look at some of the typical self-service features made available to an employee. And finally, we will wrap up with taking a look at the training and reporting capabilities from an administrator's point of view. So with all that being said, allow me to pull up our sample recruitment site. You can use the recruitment module to post job openings directly onto your website or any other job board, allowing candidates to apply for those positions using the candidate self-service features. As you can see, a candidate can search job openings directly from the bottom of this screen. Now, rather than narrowing down our search further, we'll just view all of the available job openings for this particular company. Let's take a look at the executive position. A candidate can view the job description from this page and decide whether or not they would like to apply for that position. Candidates will be directed to a login screen that will require them to create a username and password to log in and apply for that job. I'm going to log in as an existing user so that we can take a look at an application that has already been completed. I want to start by bringing your attention to the upper left-hand corner of this screen. Here, a candidate can see their application status within the hiring process. Now, as a new candidate completes their application, they'll need to simply enter in their information within these tabs across the top. They can enter in their contact information, upload a copy of their resume, enter in their job categories, their skills, work experience, their education, EEO information, and their professional references, and ultimately, they'll be able to review all of the information that they entered here on the summary screen. So once they have verified the accuracy of their application, an email notification can be set up to go to the hiring manager to let them know that the application has been submitted and that all of the information gathered here on the application will flow into the applicant tracking system seamlessly. I also want to mention that when an internal job is posted through the recruitment module, employees have the ability to apply for those jobs as well using their employee self-service portal. Now, many companies use background screening services prior to hiring an employee, and our platform has an integration to complete a background check right through the system, and a candidate can access their portal to sign off on that background check authorization form. So once the authorization form has been completed and submitted using the employee's electronic signature, the hiring manager would be able to order that background check through the system, and the results will also display within the system for easy access. So now that our candidate has finished their application, let's take a look at the applicant tracking side of things. Back on the login screen, I'm going to log in as Kathy, the hiring manager. When we log in, we can see that there is a dashboard screen enabled, which is a great way to access certain areas of the system that the employee uses most frequently. A dashboard can be configured for each individual employee based on their role and the types of things that they need to access within the system. So as you can see, I have a tab enabled just for recruitment purposes so that Kathy can easily manage the hiring process. Here on the recruitment dashboard, you can see that Kathy has a list of quick links that will allow her to navigate through various areas of the system using these hyperlinks that are being displayed, which are configurable based on the employee's role. She also has a window enabled which shows the hiring manager all of the new applications that have come through. We do have a quick find tool that will allow the user to type in certain keywords such as a certain skill set or a certification that they are looking for, and then the results will display below. Let's go ahead and take a look at our applicant's information. The first screen that we come to is the Main tab. Remember, all of the information captured from the candidate will flow into the applicant tracking system. From this screen, you can navigate the applicants through the hiring stages, so from the time the account was created all the way through the hiring process. And given that every company's needs are different, these hiring stages are completely configurable. Now you can see that our candidate is currently in the interview stage, and we have the ability to track those interviews here under the Communications tab. All of the details around the interview will be stored here, and there's even a notes area which will allow the hiring manager to jot down notes from the interview to access at any time. And once the interview has been scheduled, you can easily email the candidate a confirmation email by using the email button here on the bottom of the screen. You have the option of either drafting an email on the fly or adding a predetermined email template. As you can see, we've created an email template that can be sent to all of the candidates that move on to this phase of the interview process. The platform allows you to create as many different email templates as you need, so essentially you can have a separate email template for each stage of the hiring process to alert each candidate of where they stand within the process. So now let's fast forward a little bit and let's say that we're looking to hire this person. This will open a new window that will allow you to enter in the necessary information to get this person hired successfully. You'll notice that certain fields such as the employee's name and address are already populated for you, as this is pulling directly from their applicant information. You will need to simply fill out the remaining required information in order to hire the applicant. Now you do also have the ability to verify the Social Security number through the Social Security Administration if you choose to, and it will determine if the Social Security number matches the employee's name. This is especially important at year-end because a large cause of corrected W-2s is caused by inaccurate Social Security numbers, and this will provide those checks and balances for you immediately upon hire. So let's take a look at how this would work. I'm going to simply enter in a Social Security number for this person, and then I'm going to search the Social Security Administration's database to determine if this is a valid Social Security number for the employee. And as you can see, my result showed up as failed, and that's because I simply entered in the numbers 1 through 9, so we know that that is not a valid number, but you are hoping for a verified result here. You will then need to enter in the base compensation and a few other items such as the security profile, which will identify what type of features and functionalities that you want to have this employee have access to. And after you have identified all of the required information, you will have successfully hired this applicant. Now that we have hired our employee, let's take a quick look at his employee record. Under the Main tab, you can see this is where you can assign or change profiles to the employee, as well as designate who their manager is, and you can also have access to their emergency contacts. Also, job change history can be tracked here, which will display their historical job titles, the effective dates for those jobs, the reasons for the change, and if there was a compensation increase associated with that change. Now I want to focus a little bit more under the HR tab just to give you an idea of the different things that we can track within the system. So for example, we can track the employee's education, any trainings or certifications that they might have, and any incidents, disciplinary, performance, or even attendance issues can be stored here against their record. Now, a lot of companies today are going paperless, so there is the ability to scan all paper documents and store them within the employee's record for easy access. We can also track assets that have been issued to the employees, such as laptops, cell phones, keys to the office, etc. A differentiator here is that the system is intuitive enough to look back to the employee's record during the termination process, and it will prompt the user to make sure that those assets have been returned. Workers' claims can also be stored here within the employee's record. All of the information collected within this area will be populated onto the OSHA log, which will help streamline the process. Now, the system does have the ability to store a wide range of data to fit your needs, but every company is unique and they might have special tracking needs. So we do have the ability to create custom fields to fit your needs, which is also a differentiator here. So here you're able to create an unlimited number of custom fields, and the data captured within these fields can be pulled into your different HR reports. Now we can actually take this concept one step further by creating custom screens to track specific data elements that are unique to you. An unlimited number of inventory items can be created based on your unique tracking needs, from tracking awards to even tracking employees' pet information. So let's go ahead and take a look at the awards in further detail as an example of how this can benefit you. Now within each inventory item, you can create an unlimited number of custom fields, and all of the data that's captured within these fields are reportable. You can also add any notes or upload supporting documentation, such as a copy of the nomination form. Remember, any documents that you attach to an employee will be stored within their employee record for easy access. So this is just another example of how flexible our system is and that you can track virtually anything. Now let's move on and take a look at the typical employee self-service features for our newly hired employee, Josh. So I'm logged in as Josh, and the first thing that he sees is his dashboard where he has access to items such as company announcements, which will display global messages visible by all company employees. A to-do list has also been enabled to display the items that a particular person is responsible to complete. And he also has a quick links area which will allow the employee to navigate through the system using these hyperlinks that are being displayed, rather than using the menu options up above to navigate the system. So what's great is when you hire a new employee, you're able to put your standard process within our new hire checklist to help streamline the onboarding process. We can view the complete checklist by clicking on the magnifying glass. As you can see, Kathy was responsible for completing the first few items here on this checklist. Josh is only responsible for completing the items that are listed as waiting on Josh Bronson. So you will notice that Josh is required to complete his handbook. In this case, we've attached a copy of the handbook right here for easy access. So once he has reviewed the handbook, he can mark this item as completed. And you'll notice that confirmation is required. That means that he is required to acknowledge that he has reviewed the handbook by using his electronic signature. So once he has marked this item as completed, it will stamp the date and the time here on the right-hand side. Now the checklist also indicates that Josh is required to complete a couple of his new hire forms. What's a really nice feature is the ability to complete certain paper forms like the I-9 form electronically. And this is great because if you ever need to reference these forms again, they will be stored against the employee's record for easy access. So let's take a look at how the platform will allow you to do this. So I'm going to go ahead and create a new I-9 form. And you'll notice that it works just like the paper form. The system has already filled out the employee's address, their date of birth, and their social security number, as this data is being pulled from his employee record. So essentially, Josh is simply responsible for attesting to his employment eligibility and then submitting the appropriate documentation to back that up. He can then sign off on this form using his electronic signature, and then this form will be submitted to the appropriate person within the company for approval. That person would then be responsible for completing Section 2 of this form and reviewing the identification that he has provided. If the administrator would like to, they can upload a scanned copy of that documentation within the employee's record as well. So once the I-9 form has been approved, you can run this employee through E-Verify, which is integrated within our system. E-Verify is required by a number of states and federally contracted companies to determine if the employee is authorized to work within the United States. By having this integrated into our system, this allows you to capture all of the information from the I-9 form and populate it within E-Verify, with the results appearing through the system as well. So now why don't we go ahead and take a look at the withholding forms next. So you can see that we have already submitted the withholding forms, but let's take a look at what would happen if we wanted to add a new one. You'll notice that you have the choice of which federal or state forms you would like to add, and the state forms are automatically made available by looking at the employee's address and the company's address. Now let's go ahead and take a look at the completed federal form, as this is going to be the same universal form for everybody. So once again, this works the same way as the paper form. He'll simply need to complete this worksheet, and once he's ready, he can go ahead and submit his withholding form by providing his electronic signature. So now we've taken a look at the forms that come standard within the system, but you also have the ability to create an unlimited number of custom forms to meet your business needs. And these forms can be tracked and stored within the system, allowing your HR department to go completely paperless. So let's go ahead and take a look. We're going to take a look at the Employee of the Month nomination form. And from here, the employee would be able to complete this form and then submit the form for review. Now, employees also have the ability to update their personal information, which can go through an approval process based on the workflow that you've defined. Employees can update things such as their address, phone numbers, and direct deposits, just to name a few. So for an example, if an employee moves and they need to submit an address change, that can be done here through their employee self-service portal as well. So this is where they can go ahead and make that change and update their personal information, and this will then start that workflow process. This platform will allow you to streamline the open enrollment process as well. Employees have the ability to enroll in their benefits online, eliminating the need for paper enrollment forms. The enrollment data can be captured electronically and stored against the employee's record for reporting purposes. I also want to point out that you can determine what benefits will be made available to whom. So for example, if you have multiple locations, you can offer different benefits to each group of people. Now this feature can be used for open enrollment or for life change events, and the screen would be the same for both. So in this case, let's say that Josh is going to start the open enrollment process. First, we're brought to the Instructions tab, which is completely configurable, and each additional tab represents the different type of benefit plans. For any of the benefits, we have the option of waiving the coverage, as you can see here on the right-hand side of the screen. Employees can also review and compare plans and make a selection. If we wanted to dig into the plan in a little bit further detail, we can do so by clicking on the magnifying glass. And as you can see, this will allow the employee to review the plan features such as the copay amounts, the deductibles, as well as the out-of-pocket limits. You can also upload a copy of the plan documentation for the employees to access right here at their fingertips as they're looking to make a decision. Now let's say that we wanted to compare multiple plans. Maybe we want to take a look at the employee-only options. This will give us a nice side-by-side comparison of the two of these plans, so we can go ahead and review the differences in the premiums, the copays, the deductibles, and so on, so we can make a more informed decision on which plan we should move forward with. So now we can go ahead and make our selection and move on to the dental insurance. The same process will apply here, however this time I'm going to waive the coverage. So now let's move on to the life insurance option. And here we've set up age-based deduction amounts based on the coverage that they select. You also have the ability to require that an evidence of insurability form be uploaded from this screen if you choose to. I'm going to go ahead now and make my selection, and now I can confirm my selections. On this screen, this is where you will be required to add a beneficiary or dependent if necessary before you can submit your request for approval. So as you can see, we are required to add a beneficiary for our life insurance plan. So I can go ahead and make my selection, and then after I have identified my beneficiary, I'm able to submit my request. So as a last step in this process, we're asked to review our selections one last time and enter in our unique system password, which will serve as our electronic signature as we saw in the electronic forms. Once we do this, the benefits are going to be pushed onto the appropriate person to review our selections and approve them, and once approved, the deductions will be created and come into play based on the effective dates set up for the plans. I also want to mention that we do have a third-party integration that will provide carrier connection services. This will automatically send the carriers all of the updates based on the frequency that you've set up. We can also make company documents available to employees. Here you can view things such as the company handbook, company forms, or different handouts. You can upload an unlimited amount of documentation for employees to access and in any format that you would like. We also have a company directory, which gives easy access to phone numbers of all company employees, so in the event that Josh forgets his coworker's extension, he can easily look it up from here. Josh can also view an organizational chart to see where he fits into the company. So you can click on the name here on the left-hand side to see where that person falls into the org chart. So here we can see that Josh reports into Paul, and Paul reports into Kathy. Now let's move on to taking a look at the tracking and reporting capabilities from the administrator's point of view. As we can see here, we have an announcement displayed on the top of the dashboard, which will act as a reminder to the employees, and it looks like we need to review the performance reviews for a moment. In the system, you have the ability to set up to 6 levels of workflow for the performance reviews and identify who would be responsible for each step. So in our example, let's take a look at how we would finalize a review. As you can see, there were 3 levels of workflow set up for this review, and every step has a different percentage attached to it. So Ashley's self-review counts as 10% of her total ranking. She's being reviewed on her core values, her company competencies, and her company goals. And her total ranking is calculated using a weighted average, taking into account all of the different variables. From this screen, Kathy can enter in any additional comments. She can also enter in the dates that the review was signed off on. You also do have the ability to enter in pay increases and use effective dating so that the review will not go into effect until that specified date. You can also enter in a new job title or a bonus if the review triggers it. And we also do have the ability to perform a compensation analysis directly from this screen. This will help you in retaining your current employees as well as attracting new talent because it makes sure that your increase is in line with industry standards. The job title is populated based on the employee that you've selected. You will then be prompted to enter in the number of years of experience as well as the location. And then you will be able to retrieve the results. Once the results have been retrieved, a PDF report will appear that you can download, and this is going to give you a high-level overview of the results, which can then be printed out and shared with the manager or the decision maker. This report contains a snapshot of the labor market for that position, and it has a lot of different graphs and information within this report, but probably the most significant is the hourly rate by experience that you see here. Perhaps Ashley's review indicates that she needs additional training in a particular area. Our system can also track trainings and certifications, which you can easily access from under the quick links. As we can see here, many of the screens in our system are built in a report format. This report, for example, shows what courses have been taken by each employee, and in this case, we're looking at the emergency responder course. This report can be filtered by a specific employee to identify what training or certification that employee has. And also from this screen, you can see when a course was completed or when a course expires. And this report can also be filtered by expiration date. So if you wanted to pull a report to see whose certifications were expiring this year, you can certainly do that. You can also report off of the employee cost as well as the company cost to help determine the cost associated with each type of training, which will help maintain a training budget. So now I want to show you how easy it is to customize this report to get it just the way that you want it. You can easily add columns by going to the Tools drop-down and selecting Columns. On the right-hand side are all of the current columns that are being displayed within your report, and on the left-hand side are all of the available columns that you can report off of. So as you can see, there are quite a few columns that you can choose from, and I can use the search box here to search for the appropriate column to bring in my report. So let's say that I'm going to report off of the region. I can go ahead and bring that into my report, and when I'm ready, I can select the columns. Now I can group this report by the region, and this will give me an idea if anybody in a particular region will need to be recertified as an emergency responder. Now reporting is flexible, so you also do have the ability to rename columns or add any custom calculations. And once you get the report just the way that you want it, you can save your settings. Now every time you go into this report, it will appear in this format. And you can also export this report out of the system into many different export formats, including CSV, Excel, PDF, HTML, XML, and text. You do have the ability to customize any report in our system in the same way, and you can also set up each report to auto-run and be emailed automatically to your inbox as an add-on feature. Now let's say that our employee Ashley has a performance issue. We can track any performance, disciplinary, or attendance issues and then attach them to the employee's record. Here we can see that Ashley does have an incident on file, and we can click on the icon to view the incident in further detail. Here we can capture all of the general information surrounding this incident. We also can upload any supporting documentation, such as a copy of the write-up. And another thing to note is that notifications can be set up to alert certain people when an incident occurs. You can also enter in the resolution information from this screen, so perhaps this incident is going to trigger her termination. Here we can complete the termination process. You can select the employee, you can select the termination date, and also the reason for the termination. You also have the ability to determine if the employee is rehireable or not, and if there was any notice given. And remember, when you go through this process, the system will look to see if any assets have been issued and prompt you to make sure that they have been returned. In addition, you do have the ability to create a termination checklist, which will assign tasks to employees to ensure that the termination process is followed and that no important steps are overlooked. And with that, we have completed the employee's life cycle.